Silver. Today I'm going to be going over the series and books that made me personally have an interest in reading. All of these are ones that I hold very dear to my heart because they did spark this intense desire to just pursue reading and living in these fantasy worlds. So a lot of these are ones that I read in like elementary school and middle school. I have a few that I read in high school. Without further ado, let's just jump into it. The first series on my list that sparked my love for reading is the Last Dragon Chronicle series by Krista Lacy. There are 7 books in this series. However, when I was younger, I didn't think straight when it came to holding on to books. So we have a used bookstore around where I live, and you can take books that you've read before and trade them in for either cash or store credit. So when I was younger, after I read this series, I went and turned in my books for store credit, which I look back on and think that that was a huge mistake because I want those books back. So I'm actually thinking about rebuying them. But this was the first series that I can remember reading, and I just fell in love with reading. These books took me on such a journey. I think I was in like maybe 4th or 5th grade when I read them. And I just was in love with the story. So there's the Fire Within, Ice Fire, Fire Star, the Fire Eternal, Dark Fire, and then these Fire World and the Fire Ascending. The reason I love this series so much is obviously it's about dragons. And when I was younger, I loved anything that had to do with magic, fantasy, dragons. And so when I started reading this series, it starts off with the main character David moving in with a mother named Liz and her daughter Lucy. And Liz makes clay dragons. And these clay dragons actually come to life. And when I was younger, I loved the idea of that actually happening. And I thought maybe if I tried it, I could make a clay dragon that came to life. It didn't come to life, obviously. But the idea of that happening was just like mind-blowing to me. And I've loved this series ever since, and I highly recommend it. The next series on my list is the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. I like the previous series. I don't have the copies for it. I sold them at the used bookstore, which again, I regret. But I read the Percy Jackson books in, I think it was like 6th grade, and I flew through those books. Those were some of the best books I had read at the time. And I remember just craving another series that made me feel the way that series had made me feel. So this next series on my list is what sparked the types of books that I love to read now. My favorite genre that I love to read and write is paranormal romance. And the series that started all of that for me was the Fallen series by Lauren Kate. When I read these, I was in middle school. And the first book, Fallen, I had seen one of my friends reading, and I loved the cover. The cover is what made me want to read this book. And I fell in love with the story. It's about angels, which is probably one of my favorite kinds of paranormal romance books to read. And I was so in love with all the characters in the book, and I was rooting for this story to go on. And it did go on. But it didn't go on the way I wanted it to. While I love the series because it made me want to read paranormal romance, I don't actually enjoy the entire series. Fallen and the second book, Torment, were both pretty decent reads. Fallen was definitely the best out of all of them. Torment was okay. When it got to the last 2 books, Passion and Rapture, I had completely lost sight in what the series was even supposed to be about. I honestly thought Passion was kind of pointless. It covers Luce and Daniel's past experiences and all their meetings in their previous lives when they would find each other, fall in love, and then their curse, if you will, would start over. And while it was sort of cool getting to see all their old love stories, I didn't really get what the point of it was. And then by the time I got to the last book, Rapture, I just didn't care anymore. And I honestly didn't really like the ending, if I'm going to be honest. So while I am thankful for the series because it has sent me on a wonderful journey and allowed me to find all kinds of new books that I absolutely love, this series itself is not one of my favorites. The next series, if you will, on my list is actually Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon is what sparked my love for mangas. And if you didn't know, I'm a huge otaku. I love anime, mangas, anything that has to do with Japanese culture. Sailor Moon is what really got me into reading mangas. I had never read a manga or even tried to read a manga, but I was given the first volume of Sailor Moon for Christmas, and I had a bit of trouble reading it at first because I wasn't sure how you're supposed to read a manga because you read it opposite the way that you do a book. But after reading it, I just fell in love with it. I love all the characters in it. Chibiusa kind of gets on my nerves because she tries to hit on her dad, which is just, you know, weird. But overall, I love the story of Sailor Moon, and I highly recommend it. And the final series on my list is Black Butler. Black Butler is my favorite manga and my favorite anime. I think Yana Toboso is an absolute genius. I love her writing. So, this particular series features a boy named Ciel and his demon butler, Sebastian. And after watching the anime and reading the mangas, I became a huge fan of yaoi. And if you don't know what yaoi is boys love, which means guy on guy. Black Butler is not actually a yaoi manga. It doesn't have any sort of scenes where you see boys kissing, boys interacting in that way. I just ship Sebastian and Ciel together. But after pairing those two, I was like, ooh, I want to read actual yaoi. And that has sent me on a long journey of reading back to back to back to back of yaoi mangas and now yaoi novels. I am very grateful for Black Butler for many different reasons, but it has definitely sparked my love for all things demonic and all things gay. So that's all for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to follow me on all my other social medias. I'll have them linked down below. And also make sure to subscribe, turn on my post notifications, like, comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!